This is the Faithless Father channel where you gain insights on religion and philosophy. Today is a particularly interesting discussion that we're going to have, which centers on the ability of Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, to translate ancient texts. I used to be a stalwart member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was a Mormon. I gave the church lots of money to pay for my mission in South America and tithing, and I spent a lot of my life in the church and gave many of my efforts in that cause. I was one of the most faithful. Let's see, it was almost a couple years ago now that I removed my name from the records of the church because of a lot of different reasons. There's no way that I can cover in one video. Well, I mean, I could, but it'd be hours. It'd be like 6 hours, 10 hours, who knows? It'd be a lot of hours. There's no way I could cover in one video that anyone would be interested in all the reasons why I removed my name from the Mormon Church and left Christianity altogether. But you can kind of, I guess, go to my channel and learn the things that I've learned and kind of, you know, it's a big picture thing, okay? Once you study religion and understand how different religions came to be, you kind of get an idea of how mankind operated in antiquity and even a few centuries ago, a couple centuries ago. But we're progressing, and I think we're kind of growing out of religion. Some data suggests that in the developed world. I covered that in another video, but anyway. As you study religion, especially one religion, you gain a big picture understanding of what transpired. I did that with Mormonism and with Christendom as a whole, and in my analysis, Christianity didn't hold water, and that's the backbone of Mormonism. Obviously, without Jesus, Mormonism would have no leg to stand on if you didn't know that. Anyway, today, the translation abilities of Joseph will be analyzed, and you'll likely hear many things that you haven't heard before, and you'll learn a couple things, I think. I began researching this stuff like when I was 14. You know, we read scripture. When I used to be a Mormon, our scripture was this. We had 4 books that we kind of went by, 4 sections. They're not really books, but 4 texts in this big book. We used to call it the quad. They call it the quad still. But the Holy Bible, the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. Anyway, let's jump into what I want to talk about today. Joseph Smith allegedly did a lot of translating. This is one piece of the big picture of Mormonism. The reasons why I left Mormonism range from historical to Joseph's translating abilities, to personal experience, to other people's experience, to objective data, subjective data, and everything in between. It's an overall view of Mormonism, why I left. The translation ability of Joseph Smith is in question. For those of you that don't know, there are 4 texts that Joseph Smith claimed to have translated. The Book of Abraham, the writings of Joseph of Egypt, the Kinderhook Plates, and the Book of Mormon. That's a weird one. I'm not going to do that, so I switched to 4. The 4th is the Book of Mormon, which is the most significant, but we'll cover that at the end. So again, the Book of Abraham, the writings of Joseph of Egypt, the Kinderhook Plates, number 3, and the Book of Mormon, number 4. That's not in chronological order. The chronology of those are in a different order, the Book of Mormon being first, actually. But for our purposes here, we're just going to do we're going to cover these texts in that order. The Book of Abraham is a product of Joseph Smith found today in the Mormon canon as a section of text within the collection of texts in the Pearl of Great Price, which is that last book kind of right there. Smith produced this text between 1835 and 1842 with the help of at least 2 scribes. Recently, before Smith began translating that text, the Book of Abraham, the Mormon Church, under Joseph's direction, purchased some Egyptian papyri from a traveling antiquities showcase. Back east, this was someone who got ancient artifacts from Egypt, and he was trying to sell them. He was trying to resell them for some money. He was trying to make a buck. And it was that papyri that Smith claimed was the original text of this Book of Abraham. In other words, Joseph Smith purchased old Egyptian papyri and then claimed to translate it by the gift and power of God. To our great benefit, we have portions of those original manuscripts. That original papyri, which Joseph Smith used for his ostensible translation. Egyptologists and other scholars of antiquity have discovered that the Egyptian texts in these original manuscripts are completely unrelated to the text which Joseph Smith produced that we find in the Book of Abraham. Joseph Smith said he translated the Egyptian papyri, but in fact, he did not. The only way we can know this is because we have that original manuscript. And that original manuscript is indeed extant. It is indeed ancient, and that is true of his story. That's verifiable. I believe they date to around 300 BCE. If I had to rely on my memory on that one. But they are ancient. They date to quite a long time ago. If we did not have that original manuscript, that original papyri, that original papyrus roll that Joseph ostensibly translated, that he claimed to translate, we would never know that Smith produced text completely unrelated to what the original text contained. Joseph Smith made up the contents of the Book of Abraham. So of these 4 texts, really, to do it all justice, it would take probably an hour per text to explain all the minutia of each text. But this video is just a kind of a step-by-step breakdown, the bullet points of this kind of airtight case against Mormonism, in my view. Because if you can discredit his translating ability or show that he made it all up, I weigh that quite heavily in my evaluation of Mormonism. If you can evaluate the behavior of the founder. Many people weigh the evidence differently. That's something else that comes with painting this big picture portrait and evaluating really any case. You have to weigh evidences differently. I should say you have to weigh evidence, and everyone does that differently. So in my view, this is quite weighty. It weighs very heavy, in my view, these translating abilities. So that's the first text, the Book of Abraham. The second text, which we will discuss today, additional to the papyrus roll Joseph used for his production of the Book of Abraham, there was another text among the papyri purchased. Concerning this additional text, Smith said, quote, "I commenced the translation of some of the characters or hieroglyphics, and much to our joy found that one of the rolls contained the writings of Abraham," which we previously mentioned, another, the writings of Joseph of Egypt, etc. A more full account of which will appear in its place as I proceed to examine or unfold them. Unquote. That's in History of the Church, Volume 2, page 236. Joseph Smith did not write or publish a translation of these writings of Joseph of Egypt, but in his description, which we just read in the Volume 2 of the History of the Church, of the text, he claimed that he did translate it, and he claimed to know the contents therein. Thankfully, we have portions of this original manuscript as well. Egyptologists and other scholars have assessed the text of this original manuscript and find nothing that indicates an individual named Joseph of Egypt wrote the text, and furthermore find indications that the prominent Joseph, son of Jacob, had nothing to do with its composition. If we did not have the original text, we would never know that Smith could not translate the papyrus scroll and that he had no idea what the text said. So thank goodness we have a portion of those original manuscripts. The third text that I'll cover here is the Kinderhook Plates, as they're called. The most exciting case, in my opinion, of Joseph's translating endeavors. This occurred in 1843. Joseph Smith was presented with 6 brass plates containing engravings which were supposedly found with human skeletal remains in a hill near the city of Kinderhook, Illinois. The group claiming to have discovered the plates and skeleton wanted Joseph to translate them. Regarding the plates, Joseph said, quote, "They found a skeleton about 6 feet from the surface of the earth, which must have stood 9 feet high. The plates were found on the breast of the skeleton and were covered on both sides with ancient characters. I have translated a portion of them, and find they contain the history of the person with whom they were found. He was a descendant of Ham through the loins of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and that he received his kingdom from the ruler of heaven and earth." History of the Church, Volume 5, page 372. Right here. Soon after Joseph claimed to translate the plates, the men who claimed to discover them came out and said they did not actually find any plates at all, but rather manufactured them themselves and etched them with symbols themselves. The plates were forgeries used to dupe Joseph Smith and prove him a fraud. This was their plan all along. Luckily for us, one of these 6 original plates is extant. Comprehensive testing in a lab at the Department of Materials Science and Engineering at Northwestern University in 1980 has proven the plate to be manufactured in the 19th century and indeed not an ancient artifact whatsoever. Smith claimed to translate incoherent squiggles on fake ancient plates. If we did not have this original plate, we would never know that Joseph Smith made up specific details whole cloth pertaining to the fake symbols and completely forged brass plates that this group of individuals presented to him in 1843. Joseph Smith made up his pseudo-translation of the Kinderhook Plates. So we have 3 instances where Joseph made up stuff, and he said that they were the translation of an artifact. The first 2 being an ancient artifact, the Egyptian rolls that he had in his possession truly. The third being those plates, the Kinderhook plates, which were a forgery by a group of dudes who were smart and they knew he was full of it and wanted to disprove the ostensible prophet Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, and they succeeded. This is often overlooked and not weighed as it doesn't have the weight that it deserves, in my opinion. The fourth case, which we'll cover, is the case of the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is the most significant ostensible translation of any ancient text by Joseph Smith. Because of this book, the members of the church are called Mormons. The text of the Book of Mormon is the alleged translation of Reformed Egyptian characters engraved on plates of gold, first discovered by Smith in 1820 by the guiding hand of the angel Moroni. The Book of Mormon was published by the church in English in its first edition in 1830. The Book of Mormon contains intricate details of geography, war, family life, travel, theology, comprising lengthy historical accounts of entire civilizations. I've read the book several times, like 6 times or something, and it really is something. You should check it out just for entertainment purposes. It's a pretty wild ride. It's a pretty entertaining book. And it's pretty amazing still, in my opinion, that Joseph wrote it with even the help of some scribes, which he did have. Martin Harris, Oliver Cowdery, Emma Smith, his wife. But it is really remarkable, the text. I believe to this day still. The original of this text, the original of the Book of Mormon, does not exist. So how are we to know if he in fact translated anything at all? When Joseph entirely invented the material of his 3 other mistranslations, we'll call them, how can we draw any other conclusion when it comes to the Book of Mormon other than that which screams at us conspicuously? Joseph Smith made up the text of the Book of Mormon too. As I said, each one of these texts has arguments and counter-arguments that we can go into. There is evidence for the idea that Joseph actually did translate the Egyptian papyri, the Kinderhook Plates, and the Book of Mormon, obviously. There's probably now, I haven't checked the membership of the church now, but I would imagine it's somewhere around 20 million or something. So 20 million people still believe this. So, and a lot of Mormons are smart and they look into stuff like this, and they have their own apology group as well, and they defend their faith, So there are arguments that we can get into for each one of these texts. This is my view. I believe that Joseph Smith either was honestly mistaken in his translation ability or was a liar. You have to choose between those two, I think, in my opinion. I don't think he had the gift and power of God. I don't think that he could translate any ancient record whatsoever, as evidenced by the texts that I just mentioned. And that's one evidence that you can look at, one piece of the puzzle, and some food for thought. For you Mormons, take a look at this, think about it. For the non-Mormons, have a good laugh, be entertained. For the Christian, use this to try to convert all the Mormons. I think there's a fair amount of them that will fall back on Christianity to be comfortable for some reason, which I don't understand. But that is going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you have any comments at all, definitely submit them as well. And thanks for watching. Have a great one.